And good morning and welcome to Touch Base Daily. My name is Ron Foss and I'm touching base with you as I always do. And yes, there is someone else on the side here. She don't realize she's on the screen.
I do realize I'm on screen. I always start my lives dancing. That's my
guess
thing.
who's here, who's not here? Chris Edwards is on the road, traveling, doing his thing. And so we have Gwendolyn in the place of our wonderful Chris. But Gwendolyn's always here also. So, and we always have fun when Gwendolyn is sitting in that seat.
Isn't that a Jay-Z lyric? Guess who's back?
Daisy, what?
Jay-Z, guess who's back?
Oh,
I'm not going to be dropping no rhyme. I'm not going to drop any rhymes.
I mean, I know nothing about rap.
Oh, and you had, so really quick, you had the audacity to question me in my New York City understanding, and you don't know any Jay-Z lines.
I know I do know some Jay-Z lines, but I don't want to, I'm like that with every song, not just Jay-Z. I know pieces of songs, pieces of music. There are some songs that I definitely will learn the lyrics, the full lyrics, and then run around and sing the whole song. However, most of the songs that are committed to memory are in pieces. Welcome, Gwendolyn.
Good day.
We got a lot to talk about today.
How are you?
I am good. It is so good to have the work wife on board here. As we both are getting ready for our vacations and getting away and doing our thing.
Yeah.
Man, I can't believe that we are. Well, first of all, let me just start with this morning. This morning, I had the opportunity to go to my the school that I am on the advisory board of, which is Information Technology High School. And the principal wanted me to see the lab that I helped design. And so I did all of the, what we call the materials, picking out the chairs, the desk, the tiles, the floor tiles, the window treatment, the shades, the curtains, the what else did we do? The desktops, the teacher's desk, the podiums, all the stuff that went into this beautiful place. And I'm going to share a little video with you guys later on. But it was so cool to see. There's one thing when you design as a designer and you put it on paper, like when you get all this information and they say, you need to pick this, you need to pick that, and to make this all happen. And in your head, you have to be able to imagine the whole thing together, even though these are SKUs and pictures and you're putting it all together, and then you send it out to the contractors, and the contractors did such a great job. Nice. I mean, the tiles are beautiful. I mean, I wish I had my phone is here. I don't know. And maybe at some point I can grab a hold of it. But it looks so good. It was so good. And then I got to meet a new teacher and all that good stuff. Paint makes the difference, y'all.
It does.
Paint makes the difference. So I asked the principal, I said, has anyone had any epileptic seizures on the main floor since we did the paint job? Because when I first took on the project, the first thing I wanted to do was get rid of this glossy yellow paint. Oh. And they were like, Ron, because I said, so what's going on? What's happening? Go, Ron, I hate this color. I hate this paint. And I said, and so I looked at the paint, looked at the glare, and saw that it was reflecting off the floor, reflecting off the walls. And then I asked the principal, I said, how are the kids with epileptic, seizures on this floor? She was like, what kind of, she was like, almost like, Ron, it's amazing you would ask us that question. Every year, there's 2 or 3 kids that have epileptic seizures on the main floor. And I said, it's the paint. And she looked at me and says, Ron, I never would have thought that. I said, that's why you hired me as an interior designer. I said, it's too much glare and it's oversensory. It's overstimulating the sensories. Yeah. So I chose a new color, a new gray, eggshell flat
Mhm.
paint. They redid the whole building with this beautiful gray so they could put their art on the walls.
Mm.
And so I asked her today, because this is going on the 3rd year since I just designed this space. And I said, well, it's been 3 years now. Have you guys had any epileptic seizures? And she goes, "Ron, we have not had one, not one, since before the paint job." And I tell people, paint makes the difference. People don't realize the power. I always tell people, don't use gloss. Back in the old days when we were growing up in our families, our grandparents and our great grandparents, they had glossy everything. They put glossy on the frame, glossy on the wall, glossy on the ceiling, glossy.
Sounds like my mama. It's
It
all
was
right.
glossy
I love my mama, though. I love my mama.
everywhere. And you had to teach your friends and family not to go with the gloss. And so I learned that early on in interior design. And but shout out to Information Technology High School out in Long Island City, here in New York City, Queens. They're all getting ready for their graduation, which brings me to the point of the graduation, is that if you've seen links of GoFundMe, I put them in here. I'll put them again on here as well today, and we'll keep doing it. But we are raising money for the school kids like we did last year. Last year, we were able to help the kids with their prom and their graduation fees and their clothing. We were able to donate $425, I think, last year. And this year, I put a GoFundMe up to $1,500. So I said, look, we're going to try. Look, we got enough people that look at this. If you want to support, it's a great way. Last year, it was impromptu. I was just sharing with you guys what I was doing with my Patreon, and that you guys, Patreon folks that are in here that support me, and I wanted them to know where the money was going. So I shared it, and then the rest of the folks in the room said, hey, I want to help. I want to help. And we were able to raise $425 for the graduates last year. So I said, you know what? Let's do it again this year. And I would love to see this platform continue to grow and build and help people. That's the purpose. Anyway, Gwendolyn, what's going on in your part of the world?
Oh man, let me see. So yeah, my grandson is graduating next week. And then the great nephew is graduating the week after. My niece is graduating the week after that. So we are graduation down. And yet and still, even yesterday, I had a young lady reach out for a consultation for graduation photos.
Wow.
Not that I don't do last minute. I'm not doing last minute this year.
Oh yeah, because you're on the road
this year. Yes,
you are on the road, and
we're about to go celebrate.
Whew, I can't tell you how much I cannot wait to be on the road. I was like, I am definitely in need of my vacation. That's all I have to tell you, folks. I am definitely in overtime need of my vacation. So there's a lot of there's some headlines that we're going to definitely tackle today. Gwendolyn and I have been talking, and it's been really interesting to be able to we're going to talk about Marilyn Mosby. We're going to talk about that today. That's going to be near the end. So Elise, if you want to pop on later about, like, let's give it to about 11:45, we're probably going to begin that discussion, because it is something that's very, very important for those that have not been following the story on Marilyn Mosby and the petition that's been out there to what we call it, my brain's frozen, but to get a pardon. Thank you, dear. A pardon. A pardon. So first of all, let's say hello to some people. There's a lot of folks that we didn't say good morning. Hey, Chrissy's in the building. Anthony Rowland is in the building. And if you missed yesterday, or Anthony was here, and we had our conversation on our Wednesday Wisdom Wednesday, and so check that out on the repeat, or just go in, just check it out. So you can always go on there and check it out. Benny Houston, that is your mama. I'm like, Bernie. Benny, I'm
Lord bless.
sorry. Miss Houston
It's
is in the
okay.
building. See,
Benny and the Jets. Yes, it's all right.
and obviously Gwendolyn says, hey. And Rashawn says, good morning, Ron and Gwen. And Kaz says, blessed and thankful Thursday all. Yes, it is thankful Thursday as well. What are you guys thankful for? Lisa says, hey, G and Ron. Yeah, Lisa, Gwendolyn just gave a, what she call her unboxing of Lisa's red
Right, it
mug.
did. Yeah, it
I
dropped
saw that. I was like,
yesterday.
ooh, I'm jealous. I might want to get the red one too. Where is my cup? My cup is in the kitchen. Oh, wow, I didn't bring my drinking cup. But those cups that Lisa sells are just amazing. And the big one I have that you guys see me drinking all the time, it is perfect. And maybe Lisa can do this as a selling point. That particular mug will not tip over if you put it on your desk. So it is safe for your keyboards, safe for your computer. It is not going to tip over. So get one if you want a good mug, a big ass mug.
It's hefty.
Check out Lisa. That's what it says on it. Check out Lisa's mugs on her page. It is worth having. Chrissy says, I loved Gwen's energy. Kelly A is in the building. Good morning, she says, everyone. You put curtains in a school. They are, yeah, for this particular classroom, they asked for curtains. For blackout, I do believe it's because for presentations and blackout. So we have translucent, I should say translucent. We have transparency of 95% or 85% shades. But if they want the blackout experience, there are some curtains going up. So this lab is 80% done, but the curtains will be going up. Yes, we are. They did ask me. They said, Ron, pick out the curtains. I was like, really? Okay. That was a good question, though, Elisa. That's cool, Ron, Chrissy says. And good morning from Elise. Good morning, G and Ron. Yeah, she's yes. And I see here, good morning, Elise. Good morning, Ron and Gwen from Kimmy. Okay, we are here. We're getting it all in, Gwendolyn. We're getting it in. Hey, Bryson's in the building. Bryson is in the building. Let's see what Bryson has to say. It's more than just a good morning from Bryson.
Mm-hmm.
He says, happy Bridgerton Day. Happy Billie Eilish Day. And what is this? NKOTOB Day.
New Kids on the Block? Is that New Kids on the Block?
Album dropped.
Who is that?
Yeah, I guess New Kids. No, what is that? Nicki Minaj. Who is this? NKTOB Day, which is the new album dropped at midnight. Who is that? Who's that? Anyway, I don't know who that.
I think it is New Kids on the Block, right? Is that New
Kids
on the Block? I mean, I think it's
maybe the O and the T a reverse. Okay,
I mean,
got it.
Look, now I didn't see some letters from way back when, so certain things I'm like, we've seen it for so many years. I'm like, ain't that New Kids on the Block?
No, guys. Back to that paint situation. Elise said the gloss was easier to clean. Oh yeah, that glossy used to turn yellow and
times have changed.
Okay, so Chrissy says, happy Bridgerton Day. Yes. Okay. I'm going to check out Bridgerton. I'm going to check it out.
I've never watched it.
I watched one season. I liked the first season. It was good.
I got to sit still.
Elise says, lots of graduations.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. Congratulations to the graduates, says Kimmy Kim. Lisa says, so did you leave them touch-up paint because eggshell in a school is adventurous? Well, what happens is when I put in the color selections, the school, because the painting staff, the custodian staff, they order it by the whatever the volumes they need, and they do keep a lot of supplies on hand because at the end of every school year they do what's called touch-up. So they're gonna, they'll be touching up the school throughout the summer and doing that. So they always buy over, and that's why I have to use the school vendor for their paints so they can pick it out. So it's in the school budget. Anthony says he had an amazing time. My family, friends enjoyed the show. All right. It was good. It was good. I saw some new people kind of like following me. I was like, oh, who are these folks? They must be Anthony's friends. Hey, Jamel Shabazz is in the building. Good morning, fam. He says, okay. So mom does say hi to me. There, see, mom said hi. She said hi. Hi, mom. And so we got everyone in. Did we get all the good mornings in? Yes. And Bryson says, new kids on the block. So, okay, Gwendolyn, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to start off with first?
Well, I'm rocking my FIT is hot. So let's talk about commencement speeches, shall we? Can we go there real quick?
Yeah, we can.
Let's go there real quick. Let us go. As I was telling Ron before we came live, I was just remembering that we had at my two commencements, we had Bill Cosby and Alec Baldwin speak at Radio City Music Hall. And I was like, wow, if you look back at it now, you're like, huh. But Bill did what Bill did.
Bill was the man.
He was the man.
Just because Bill has some indiscretions, Bill was the man. Hello.
It was a great speech. It really was. Like, we had a great time listening to him. And we're talking about, I can't think of the guy's name. Was it what is his name, Ron? Butcher. I'm gonna make up a name if I can.
You sound like me making up stuff.
I'm gonna just give him a name because Harrison. I think it's Harrison Butker. Let me get it correct.
Okay.
So his commencement speech, it's been going viral because in the midst of this speech, he pretty much tells these women, these young ladies who are getting ready to get their degree and cross the stage that, hey, I know you spent all this money, but your life does not begin until you become a mother and a wife. And he called these diabolical lies. Now, that's the highlight that people took out of there. That's the highlight. Keep in mind, the school that he is speaking at, they are a school that has wrapped their arms around the old rules of Catholicism. So they are doing things like even sunbathing is banned, like some really old school and I'm sorry, ridiculous things in my opinion. So the fallout, and there's a current fallout, the Kansas City mayor, because he is a Kansas City chief kicker. So first things first, just because you're in the NFL does not mean that you're not highly educated and can think, right? It does not mean that.
They don't go hand in hand? Are you saying they don't go hand in hand?
If you think about it, who was that a few years back who made, LeBron, right? He made a comment. And in so many words, they said, hey, you're just an athlete. Just shut up and dribble, right?
They certainly did. Yes,
so you fast forward, but we have noticed that when you have someone who supports a different narrative and probably doesn't have as much melanin, that the outcry is not the same. It's actually celebrated. And any message that talks about a woman being Susie Homemaker is probably going to be a message that another part of the country supports. We'll go ahead and call that spade a spade. So the Kansas City mayor is like, he does not represent Kansas City. And I want to read this because his message, his commencement speech is out there. It's like 20 minutes. I don't want to hear him speak because that just irritates me. But I do want to read this one part from his speech because it's telling about where we are. And he says, our Catholic faith has always been countercultural. Our Lord, along with countless followers, were all put to death for their adherence to his teachings. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We fear speaking truth because now, unfortunately, truth is in the minority. I think to myself, don't you work at the NFL? With people who don't look like you, right? Like when has being diverse and talking about equity and including all others become a place of tyranny? Like, what?
I mean, the choice of the word. I mean, tyranny. You think about That's one of the most extreme words in the English vocabulary.
I was like, wait. Now, people will say he's an NFL player. He gets paid to kick a ball. No offense. They have the longest lifespan in the NFL because they're just kicking a ball. Sorry. However, he still has the platform of being an NFL player who happens to be on the Kansas City Chiefs, and they won Super Bowl last year. So his words still carry weight. And so for people to just dismiss it, it's like, no, don't dismiss the foolishness because it's going to spread.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And his whole deal of you got to speak the truth and stand up for what's right. I'm going to say this. Everybody has the right to believe whatever they believe in. And I do believe that.
Yes.
And mama, forgive me real quick. If you want to be an asshole, be an asshole. You have that right. However, there is still a space where when your beliefs infringe or attempt to marginalize others, that's a problem. That is a problem.
Well, think about that. When you bring up a good point. Like right now, what happened in I think it's Virginia. I can't remember which state it is, where the schools decide to return to the Confederate names. And and so what happened was the young student got up and said, "This is offensive to me and my friends and my family that you would glorify someone that hated us."
Right.
And you will put on the school people that hate us, people that want to enchain us, people that wanted to make sure we stayed as slaves. And it offends me. But those folks they didn't care. They were like, yo, this is our tradition.
2020.
Yeah.
2020, I had a chance to participate in a webinar with Venus Williams. I remember asking her, what happens after we get through this heightened sense of awareness of Black Lives Matter and funding Black businesses, funding small businesses, funding women businesses? What happens then? And she said, you have to hold folks accountable. You do. A lot of folks, companies, and what have you, did a lot of things that were just for performance. It was just for optics, because it's only 4 years later, and the funding, the pledges, the changing of names, they're reversing. And not just reversing, they are going all in on taking away whatever opportunity we have to have a voice and have a say and be seen and heard. All in. This whole removal of DEI, right? Going after funding for small businesses. I want to say it's Hello Alice. Somebody help me out if it's not. I want to say it's Hello Alice. And this particular program is created to help small businesses for folks who are typically marginalized, right? Women, Hispanics, Black people, all the things. But people are filing these lawsuits that, well, I don't understand why I can't get a lawsuit. And the fact that you're not giving me a lawsuit as a white man, get a loan at any bank anywhere in the world at any time, something must be wrong. And it's discrimination.
And Derek says the same people, it's the same people that also banned Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
You know.
The same people.
Same people. You're offending us. And so again, when you think about the kids in the school that having their school going back to the Confederate names, I'm pretty sure it was Virginia. I think it's either Virginia or Georgia.
Is it Virginia, or it's one of those. It's not Georgia.
Virginia or Georgia. I think it's Virginia.
I think it's Virginia.
And but it's they don't care. They just don't care. And yet they will ban books because they are upset with the truth.
Not only banning books, rewriting books, because as I was mentioning on another show, it was in a comment, I think recently, it's about Rosa Parks. And they took out the part that Rosa Parks was a Black woman. They said, well, you can't say that she's a Black woman. Just say she was a woman who was asked to move. They took out why she was asked to move. Talking about rewriting history. Now, we all know why Rosa was asked to get up and move. You just can't say this woman was asked to move.
That's right.
But why was she asked to move? Right? Like that's how ridiculous this is. But, a lot of, and I hate to use, I'm going to speak in big terms here. We like the idea that it's not going to impact me.
That's
And
right.
there is a woman who recently talked about leaving Texas because she's leaving Austin, which is way out of whack in terms of home costs. But more importantly, the Texas politics is getting out of whack. And these abortion rights, they don't impact me because I've had my kids, but my daughter is 14. It's going to impact her. And I want her to have full autonomy over her body. I don't understand. And I'm going to let you pick up on your topic that we talked about, how there are people who want to be all up in the uterus, but yet and still, what was that? They're fighting for a child's marriage. Is that what you were saying?
This was in, I think it was, I want to say, is it South Dakota? It was Dakotas, one of the Dakotas. I think it was one of the Dakotas. I think it was North Dakota. South Dakota is the bad governor that wanted to shoot her dog. Well, they did shoot her dog. But the North Dakotan folks, they want to, this is what the GOP was doing last week, or I should say this week, Monday. So the Democrats were putting up legislation to ban child marriage. Child marriage. Can we say it like child marriage? And the Republicans fought against it. They fought against men marrying little girls.
Okay, so I said this to you yesterday. I'm gonna say it again. Clearly, the world is coming to an end. So if you have not gotten yourself right with God, today's the day, because we are clearly going to hell right now. That you are fighting for child's marriage.
And this is children that are 10 years old. This is not 15, 16. This is the GOP is fighting the legislation to ban marriage to 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-old girls.
Well, they're bringing back laws from the 1800s.
This is all the 1800s.
There's a trend here. Clearly, there is a trend here, but keep in mind too, there are a number of GOP states also removing child labor law protections.
Yes,
right?
I read that
want
too.
To pay people. Let's just be honest. The reason to remove these is they said, well, there are some kids who want to get a job and support their family, and no, you don't want to pay the adults who need to be paid more. And you figured instead of exploiting adults, I'll just exploit the kids because they don't know any better. Right? You're not about family values. And I have no place to say what I'm about to say, but I'm about to say it because I'm good for stepping in some stuff. Have your beliefs, have all your beliefs. But if you are telling me right now that you are part of a party that supports removing child labor protections and supports child marriage at 10 years old and supports some other foolishness that is just beyond disgusting, I'm gonna look at you sideways, and I have every right to do so because that's not pro-life, and I don't see the family values in that at all. That's not about family.
Well, the Republican Party is no longer. It is truly the party of Trump. It is also the party of a crazy extremes. And I always say, when it comes to the Republicans and the megas, cruelty and pain is the point.
And keep in mind, that man has talked about his daughter in beyond disgusting ways. Beyond. I'm like, what? That's your child. But no.
Yeah, back in the day, Howard Stern said a negative thing about, hey, your daughter got a great A, and he says, that's my daughter, and if she wasn't my daughter, I would, date her. Who says that about their daughter? But why would you support a man as president like this?
That part, the moral compass is not out of whack. It's just broken. It no longer exists. It's not there. And the fact that people, how we were talking when people say, I'm not that person. We're not those people. And this is about
Yes.
Enid, Oklahoma, who got a white supremacist on their city council and then voted him out when they found out. And they were like, well, we're not those people. Yet and still, the people you support have the same ideas he does. You are very much those people. Put your arms around that. Okay? Because that's you. That guy right there, he would not have been voted in if he wasn't representing you and what you believe in.
It's incredible. So when people tell me that they are a Trump supporter, um, they were like, "Oh, you could separate the person's voting." I say, "No, you can't. There's no way your moral standards of who you are going to allow you to vote something that is against your own moral belief system."
But people will sell their soul to the devil. And I know that sounds awful, but it is. When people God bless humans, and I mean that, Lord, please send us a couple of prayers because we are clearly not in alignment. I've said it. I ain't talk to management. I'm gonna get on my knees and be like, Lord, I don't know what's going on down here. Because these people who are claiming to be now, I'm not a Christian. I am non-denominational. I've already put that out there that this organized religion, I don't fully understand it. But if you're looking at something, if the people who are claiming to be, and right now it is Christianity that is getting like this mass airplay. If you are seeing something that is so clearly wrong, like first grade, I can tell is wrong, and you say nothing, that's a problem, right? Because integrity is calling out what should be called out versus, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to get canceled and I don't want to.
Yeah.
Like you got to stand up for something. And these laws, this behavior, this getting behind somebody and just I don't understand that part. But these are the folks who claim to be. Now I'm not gonna be CK because people voted them in. These are the folks who were voted in as leaders.
Yes.
And I don't know in what world, what universe, because clearly we're in some alternate universe still. We're in the Twilight Zone still, where you can have a guy who is clearly morally corrupt. And you're thinking, he's the best guy for the job. He's the guy to take this country back to where it needs to be.
But what's insane
values. Man, cut it out.
What's insane
smoking
is that
I should start smoking something because there must be some real good stuff. I mean, like really.
But the insanity, Gwen, and the folks in here, is that again, right now, the New York Times had their poll came out yesterday, and people were, even Morning Joe, they were like, this is a crazy poll, and they do this, and it's sensationalist, and all kinds of reasons why this poll was created. But still, to have Trump leading in several battleground states is scary, because that means half of these Americans are feeling some kind of way. They feel for this.
Okay, so here's my take on that. One, Americans have a very short memory span. They will be angry in a moment, and then the very next week they're over it, and they just kind of forget, right? Like they have bouts of amnesia. Two, I don't know who they're talking to, but I do believe, because it's statistics, you will find the people to make your argument. True. So if you are purposely looking for voters who are disengaged and uninformed, then you're going to get the answer that you want to say, oh my God, he's leading, yada, yada, yada. Three, and I'm going to say this, and it's what it is. There's a certain set of our country who will vote against their best interest if it means somebody who looks like me will have access.
Wow.
Because Trump got into office because there were women who still voted for him. But my thought is this: if they ask these pollsters, the people who are being polled, right? If they ask these people, would you still vote for blah, blah, blah if you knew these things were going to happen? I'm speaking to Project 2025. I have to wonder what the answer would be, because they're asking questions that are, no offense, how's the economy? How do you feel about the gas prices? We don't run the gas prices, okay? The president does not impact gas prices. We know that. Okay. He's not a dictator. He can't just come in here and do whatever he want to do. That's not how it works, people. 3 branches, 3, right? So
That's
when you're
right.
asking people who don't know how things work, you get exactly the answer you get, right?
Lisa says, they are fools. The black men who are down with him make me so mad. I agree. I agree. Anyone that's of any kind of a sound mind, at least I would think have a sound mind, and follow this guy is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I see Kimmy says they need to stop hiding behind the religious or moral ideology and say why you really want change. Selfish and greedy. Well, we have a topic this is a topic that I want to dive into because this is something that really should be highlighted. And I'm going to bring Elise on. There's Elise. Elise is in the building. And so she's here with us. And let me take this little banner off so we can get Elise on the screen nice and clear. Nice. How you doing, Elise?
I'm doing well. How are you all?
I'm doing good. I know you've been following this, and this is the case of our wonderful sister in Maryland.
Marilyn Mosby.
Yep, Marilyn Mosby. Maryland in Maryland. Support.
Yes, in Maryland.
Yes, right, in Maryland.
Yeah,
this is in your neck of the woods, right?
Well, in the back, kind of to the side.
In your backyard.
The whole joke down here is that we have the DMV and then we have Baltimore.
So it's like you gotta be. I mean, I've been following this. For those that you can catch the information on this topic on several Black, or I should say, people of color, people that are just mainstream, people that are not in what's called the main news stream, because the CNNs, the MSNBCs, ABC News, CBS, NBC, they're not covering this topic like it should be. And so you have the podcasts like Native Land. You have Don Lemon, who's been talking about this. You have also, but the one that has done the most, and I think done the most justice to this, is Roland Martin. Roland has been really on it. They just had the interview last night with Marlon Mosby. And Lisa, you been following this?
I definitely missed that interview because yesterday, if you're a member of Club Quarantine, yesterday was a rough day for all of us. So
what happened yesterday? I missed it.
So we found out that C. Popular passed.
Oh,
so
sorry to hear that.
Like kind of disconnected from any other news other than that for us.
Gotcha.
So I definitely did not see Roland Martin's interview, but I think that like the background people should know is that Marilyn Mosby is the one that brought the charges against the police officers who were responsible for killing Freddie Gray.
Yes.
And so a part of the belief is that this is kind of retribution for her doing that.
Yes.
And it makes you think about a lot of things. Like, so you have your own retirement fund and you use them.
Yes.
But you can be accused of fraud for your mortgage. And I think that's kind of like crazy out there. And the fact that she could get up to 40 years in prison.
40 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
For using her money.
For using her money. She can get up to 40 years for federal mortgage fraud.
Yes.
And so, I mean, and this is just a prime example of how laws are definitely unequal.
And also
right.
that this was supposedly something that the state went after her.
Yes,
because of the police officers that she indicted. And some of the police officers were serving time, correct?
Yes, it was. Yeah, she did. Yes,
she won those cases, but then on top of that, Barr, who was under the Trump administration, the AG went after her even though she was lifting up federal law.
Yeah, right. So that, but if you notice, like, she's just one of several.
One of many. Gwendolyn and I were talking about this.
Black female prosecutors.
They've gone after
that they've
all
gone after,
the Black female prosecutors
across
the country.
Across the country, because even in Georgia, they're still trying. They're appealing
with Fannie
to get Fannie off Fannie Willis off of the case again. Even though they did what the judge said they needed to do, they're still appealing it. Even though she had what happened in her life has nothing to do with bias in the case against the criminal that the man is. Right? He's a criminal. But to think about, so a part of Marilyn Mosby case, of course, one part they didn't find her guilty, the other part they found her guilty, and we also have to remember is how people present cases before juries.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's always critical, is how the prosecution presented a case against her to lead to this. So the push now is like that Biden, they're trying to get him to pardon her.
So how many, I'm just curious in this audience, how many people have been following this case, following the petition to pardon her? Is this the first time you're hearing this, or is this something that you, this is your first time, like hearing of it? I mean, if this is your first time hearing about this, put your hands up. How about that? If you this is the first time hearing about Marilyn Mosby's case, and this is the first time hearing about it, put your hands up. I see Brian, he heard of it, but who are the people that haven't heard of it? I am Miss Reese says, I have been following. Okay. Lisa says, I need to educate myself about this. It's my first time hearing about it. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, Ronna G and Elise. Okay, I see. Who else out there? Okay, who else is it? Trish says she has not heard of it. So look at that. Trish says she did not hear of it. Not my first time. Okay, Brian says not my first time. I mean, I've heard about it and been following. Okay. And I see here, Chrissy says, I've heard about it on Native Land podcast. Yes, they've been, and shout out to Native Land podcast, because it is Angela Reyes. I hope I say her name right. Rye, sorry, Rye. Angela Rye, who's been really like one of the pushers to get this pardon done. And she's the one that's kind of like really got behind rallying the NAACP, the civil rights lawyers and leaders, and she and a bunch of other leaders. But it is finally taking on I think some momentum, and people are now beginning to think about it.
Because Tamika Mallory has done a lot on it on her platform as well. So they're all kind of talking about it on their platform. So if you Roland Martin, Tamika Mallory, I know Ben Crump is one of the people who is trying to help motivate Biden to pardon her, because her sentencing is coming up.
Yes.
To believe that she can get up to 40
years. Is it May 23rd?
Is it May 23rd? It's the 23rd, next week. Next week.
Yeah. And to think she can get up to 40 years for that.
40 years.
Well, let me jump in real quick, because Ron and I had this conversation about it. And we were talking this morning that we know that if you are a sexual offender, those sentences typically are chump change, right? The same way that if you had crack cocaine or marijuana, you're going to do some serious time versus having cocaine, which is far worse. But we know how these laws are written up. Case in point, Martha Stewart.
Yes.
Martha Stewart did what a lot of other white men have done. Martha Stewart got caught, and they attempted to make
an example out of her.
An example.
Right.
Like they really wanted her to stay in the kitchen.
Yeah. She's like, I may be a felon, but I'm going to hook up with Snoop Dogg, who has never been anything, right? And here it is. Here's the white lady who's the felon, the black man who was not. But she's been rolling with that. They couldn't keep Martha down.
No, they could
But
not.
we do know that you can do some of the same things. Doesn't mean that you're going to get that same treatment. And Martha's a white woman. So now you see, here's the Black woman who's looking at possibly 40 years. 40 years. And it's open. It is open season on Black women. I've been watching some of the Harvard stories where they are still bringing out the deal of this professor or this person has plagiarized their work. It is open season across the board for Black women. And I will add this too.
And make sure you successful
Black women. Yeah.
Successful Black women. Misogyny is not just a white man's thing. We know that there are Black men and women who are just as misogynistic. Okay?
Absolutely. Yes.
So I'm gonna throw that in there because there are more than likely. And I mean, okay, let me not say I don't know. I do get into the comments because the comments say so much about where we are. And if you look at some of the comments from Native Land that talked about Marilyn Mosby, the people who were like, she did it, she got caught, they span the gamuts. It's not just people who don't look like us. It's people who look like us. Mm-hmm. So that's also very telling about where we stand.
Yeah, and it always is. Like when we look at it, it's, one of the things that's interesting to me is that we now take pride and say, oh, we're not a monolith. That's like a badge of honor for people to say.
Yes.
What I want us to think about when we say that is the other side may not be privately, but they come out as one in public.
Yeah.
See, our problem is we want to fight the fight publicly and not talk about things outside of the public. When they come out, they're fully unified on what they want to do. They're not sitting there, we're not a monolith. Oh, no, we're lockstep in this. They may think it's crazy. As you have many leaked tapes of people saying that things are crazy, but in front of a camera in public, they're together, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're still trying to prove to somebody, and I say white society, that we're different we're not all the same, that we end up harming ourselves. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
talk about we really should be trying to unify and become, obviously mono, we could be mono on a lot of things. We should be mono on a lot of things, like civil rights, like preserving the laws that are in our favor. We should be mono on all those things. Should be Black folks, and when we talk about Black folks here on this topic, it is something that we should all be mono on. And then now to expand it to society, people of color, women's rights, women should be mono when it comes to controlling their bodies.
What I say is that anyone that's not a white European male,
that's right,
should come together, which is their fear. Right. That includes poor white people. Anyone that's not a white, rich European male should come together and fight what they're trying to do. Like you always mentioned that the Hello Alice Fund. Let's not forget about the fight that, as we talk about successful Black women, the Fearless Fund is going through right now.
Right. Thank you. Right. The Fearless Fund. Right.
Yeah. Because they want it to be open to all, to everybody. So they wanted. Why is it just Black women? And by the way, it's women of color.
Yes.
They leave that part out. And I think we have to do more to change the narrative. We have to do more talking around what is, and not them lead on just trying to make it all Black and white, because it's not just Black and white. We don't fill in the spaces so other people understand that. What I want everyone to understand, if it were not for the fights and the struggles from Black Americans, and I say Black Americans the way I'm saying it, and because every group across the diaspora, no matter where they came from, everyone benefited from what Black Americans fought and got.
That's right.
So they did the fight. They did all of those things. Mm-hmm. And we have to remember that no matter where you come from in the world, if you're a woman, Black Americans are the reason you have rights.
Yes.
If you're a poor white person, in Mississippi, Black people are responsible for that.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that Black Americans fought for all these things, and what they're doing is destroying it. Whether it's looking at how they're attacking Fannie Willis in Georgia, Marilyn Mosby in Maryland, the prosecutor in New York. They haven't been able to crack her like they've tried, but
Letitia, she's from New York, and she walked. Letitia is she's been a neighbor of mine. So Letitia has been not police. You talk about knowing she came out the gate knowing how to work the New York City political circus that can be here. I mean, if there's any state that's known for corruption and underhanded stuff going on and manipulation, New York has a lot of people that have been put in the pen, politicians over the centuries. New York is like a playing capital of this area, but she knew how to navigate it, and again they went after Adams. Because not only the Black women, it's really anyone that is Black or Spanish that is in leadership in this country that is successful. They're going after them. But I just want to take a pause before we lose time.
Yeah,
this is the page. It's called justiceformarilynmosby.com. Check it out. I filled out the part. You go, you click on here, and it just has you sign the petition. It gives you all the information behind it. You can donate to the cause. You see also Native Land Podcast explains the attack on Marilyn Mosby. But here's the pardon. Here's the signed petition to pardon Marilyn today. So you can sign up, because I really believe we need to be passing this on to every person in this country. Because when someone stands up for the rights of the people, they should not be prosecuted. This woman stood up and said these police officers were wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And because she said they were wrong, like they do across the country, they go after you. And we as a society, it's one thing to get out in the street and march. That's for some folks, that's easy. Right. But you know what's easier? Going to this website,
right,
clicking on a couple of buttons. That requires you not to get out of your bed robe and slippers. You can literally go to your computer, go to your phone, go to your tablet, and go to Justice for Marilyn Mosby. If you don't understand it, you say, well, maybe I need to read more. Read up on it.
Yeah.
Go on to Roland Martin and see the story, her interview yesterday.
Right.
Go on to Native Land Podcast. Go on to these platforms. Learn if you want to. Take a couple of hours to learn. But I guarantee you'll come to the same conclusion that all of us, because not only that, but there's, I think 40, the civil rights lawyers are all bonded together.
Right.
The NAACP has now come into this. There's lawyers outside of the Black community that have also been moving into this. So it's not just a Black thing. This is truly about justice of someone that decided to go against bad people that were police officers.
Yeah.
And then they said, wait, we're going to get you. We're going to get you. They even went after her husband. Now they're getting a divorce. I mean, it gets so muddy. It's so nasty what these people have done. But guys, this is how you can help. This is how you can help. You know, I don't usually put these things out here, but this is something I really believe we need to be. How could I forget? Joy Reid has been on this as well. She's been doing this for the last 2 months. She's been talking about this. Go on Joy Reid, click in, go on to Google, click in Joy Reid and Marilyn Mosby. Or you can just go here and click on all of these. They're all here right for you in this page. And understand what the issue is and why we should be supporting this as a community. And what I mean by community, I'm not saying just the Black community.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people that want justice, and we need to protect those that are public servants, because to be a public servant is to give up a lot, especially in today's world. And so I just I just wanted to make sure I put that out there for you all. It will be linked to this video in the YouTube, so you'll have that. But pardon for Mosby. This is where you can go. But again, justice for Marlon Mosby. So
and I think it's important, like, you know, I'm glad you put that up there, because you know how I feel. I think everyone should get the information. So because so many times we're so cautious because we haven't taken the time to read something and get the information so we can understand it. And be able to, so you can when you share it, you can say, hey, this is why I'm sharing it. I think that's the important part. Just make sure you're educated on it, because we spend so much time saying, oh, I'm not sure, let me go look at this. And most of the time we're saying that out of fear. We're not saying that out of anything other than we're afraid to do something. It's time for us to stop being fearful as we see things being under attack. You know, anything where you want to, you know, we get calls constantly from these quote unquote police organizations, which tell you from the beginning, this is not tax deductible because they're private PACs that are donating to the Republican parties, and they won't tell you what party. So, you know, that's usually how I grill them. Like, who are you and who is that money going to? And if you can't tell me where your money going to, I can't do it. But you get those calls all the time. Yeah. And as you look at her case, what she prosecuted, she successfully prosecuted the police officers who killed Freddie Gray. Now you have Project 2025 and the former president saying, "Oh, we're going to give them immunity." So immunity. I'm not sure which one he meant to say, but it's gonna be so that they will not be prosecuted for those things.
Yeah. And you think about all the crazy that's going on with Trump and all the stuff he's getting away with, and they don't care about that, but they care about this woman,
right,
who did something right. Okay. It wasn't like she was like, she was out to make sure justice was paid.
And part of his case is about fraudulent representation about his real estate.
Yes.
Right? Hey, that's
the in order to obtain what? Funds.
So it's like cotton and kettle.
It's just seeing the imbalance of how it works.
Injustices.
Understanding how harsh things are for, people on the other side. Like the woman that was sentenced to, and I think it was in Texas, because she did a provisional ballot, which ended up not counting, but they gave her jail time. But then there's a Republican who voted 9 times illegally. Is he in jail?
Yes.
I don't believe he was there, but but her vote didn't count, and she did that based on someone saying do a provisional, which means they check it, and it ended up being that she shouldn't have voted, but you put her in jail even though it wasn't counted. And that case came up again last week because I think someone's trying to overturn it or something. So, but we just have to be vigilant. There's so much going on. We have to be
vigilant. We have to. It's just, and if people say, it's just everything, why it's got to be race? Why everything has to be with race? You always get that. Oh, everything has to come to race because it's just America. America. From its inception, from the beginning, it's always been about race. People stealing, taking, pillaging.
Stole this land.
Stole the land.
Absolutely.
Diseased the people.
I want to tell somebody, you need to go back home. I'm taking you with me. You don't belong here either.
Enslaved people. I was just telling someone the other night, I said, I'm waiting for the person that says to me to go back someplace. Because I have a perfect response for them. I said, first of all, I want you to understand that I am indigenous to this country.
That's right.
This is where I was created. There's no me outside of here. And then, because I've had my DNA done, That should mean I should also be able to go get my citizenship in a European country, right?
Hello?
Because I have that in me. And before we talk about people going back, since
That means I should be a British
that your
citizen.
folks' legacy is that they're from there, because some of them weren't even here during the time of the slavery, because you know where they came from. Go back, because you are the foreigner. I'm not a foreigner.
Well, think about the Trail of Tears.
Yes, horrible.
Think about the Trail of Tears and how people were removed off the land of Florida and Georgia and had to walk across a half a continent to get to Oklahoma and these places. And then after they got them there, they stole it from them again.
Because they found out Oklahoma, which is their land, with the land they pushed them to, had oil on it.
Had oil.
And they wanted to take that. I still have not been able to watch Killer of the Flower Moon, because
that's a powerful movie.
Made me emotional, so I couldn't do it. But the fact of how they did those people to get the land in Oklahoma.
How they for those that don't know about this movie, it's a historical movie. It's based on historical facts.
Yeah.
And where these men, these Europeans, settled in to this land. We are going overtime.
Yes,
because we are overtime today. The reason why is because we have extended our StreamYard. Lisa, now they're probably gonna cut us off at some point on Indie Soup, but it may whatever. But we are going overtime because there's some subjects that are so important. But I did extend. So I need Patreon members. So y'all need to become Patreon members so y'all can pay for this platform so we can extend like we do, like we're doing today. Just had to throw that out there. We can do more when everyone pitches in. But these men married the indigenous women because they had ownership of the land.
Yes.
So that they could then kill off the wives and then take their land as an inheritance.
Yes.
And that's how several white families in those areas were able to, even to this day, have the ownership of that land.
Of course. They weren't giving it back.
No, they didn't give it back. And the government wasn't making them give it back. And they killed off their spouse. They married their spouses in order to take their land for the oil and the resources. You talk about wicked, and people say, and this is what pisses me off about our society, is that people always say, "Oh, that's not American." Yes, it is. When you see on the news or the president, and I'll go with Biden, all the rest of them, they go, "It's not American."
Yeah,
this is not
Very
American.
It is. That's how America was.
American.
Right?
They stole land. They stole people. They did all.
Thank you,
things.
Bryson.
Everything.
Bryson put the
it
name.
was all based on stolen things, stolen people, stolen land, and even as you think about it, with many of the like black farmers who had land, they would kill them, chase them off their land, and take their land. You know, in the South, they would take their stores, they took their property. So it happened all over the place, and then they don't want to talk about. No, they don't want to talk about the history, because you'd have to admit that your family benefited from that.
That's
so
right.
what you had belonged to someone else. You know, earlier you were talking about the change of 2 schools in Virginia back to Confederate names, because that's your legacy. Then I told my husband, I said, so my challenge to them would be, so since you're so proud of it, let us teach about it.
Yes, right.
Right.
Let us teach the truth about it.
But they want their names.
Put it up there. I'm going to tell his story.
But they don't want to talk about the truth.
I think that we have to challenge that. We have to push back It's
You
like if
got to push back,
you have got to tell the truth. So if you want to do it, stand up there with the name that they want to put on there and tell everything about that person. Because I think that's how you get them to understand. We took Woodrow Wilson's name off a building in DC.
Wow.
Because Woodrow Wilson played the native son, which led to the invigoration of the Klan rising again.
Well, that's right. Remember the greatest march, the largest and the most influential Klan march was under the Wilson administration.
And he showed Birth of a Nation,
DC.
which was about them, in the White House.
That's
so
right.
DC, we took his name off of our high school and named it after the first Black teacher that was at the school and their principal. And so now
racism is always the problem. America, so it always I cut my eyes, I roll my eyes, I get like when they say it's not American. No, or why you always have to bring up race, Ron? Why do you have to always bring up race? Whenever you talk about American history, it cannot be neglected.
Yeah. And I think when someone brings it up, particularly if it's depending on who they are, if it's a non-Black person, ask them, why was it okay for you just to be called American and I had to be Black American or African American?
That's a good question.
Because that's an issue. They were so comfortable until recently just being called Americans.
Yeah.
And now people like me and groups that I've been in, you have to own that you are white American. And I tell them that if I have to be called, if you want to label me Black American, you have to own that you white American. You can be whatever American you want, but you're going to have a prefix in front of that. Because that's what you insist on everyone else. And I think that's how you help them understand. If it were not a racist country, why is it that you were always the one so privileged to just be called American and everybody else had to have a prefix?
Oh, I love what Miss B Spoke says. Right. Black isn't a race. It's a political designation.
Right. And to understand that the concept of different races in America was actually created in the Chesapeake Bay area because of the close relationships being formed by enslaved people, indigenous people, and poor white indentured servants.
Yeah.
So they had to create and tell the poor white indentured servants that they were not one of them because they were starting to marry each other.
That's right. And
so
that was happening in the Caribbean as well. That's
just a little history.
Yeah, no, look, you're the teacher in the room. You are the one that literally teaches in school. You teach a class. You teach classes, students, man. But it's again, people don't understand the history. And the reason, even with all the marches and all the stuff that's going on in the world, a lot of the folks that are out there marching, they don't even know what they're marching for. A lot of people that are saying this isn't, why do you have to talk about races? Why everything has to be a race? It is always, whenever race and America go hand in hand, you cannot talk about America without not talking about race, because like that woman that corrected me when I was in South Carolina at the opening of the new museum in Charleston. And she came up to me when I walked in the door. She says, you know the story about this stuff here. I said, yeah, this country was built on our backs. And then she goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Can I stop you? And I looked at her like, oh, what did I say? In my head, I'm like, okay, where are you going? And this is a white woman. She said, can I stop you? Can I stop that thought right now? And I was like, oh, where's she going with this? She goes, it wasn't your brains. It wasn't your bodies.
It was your
only. It was your brains.
Yep.
And then and when you go through this museum in Charleston, like last year I went and the Obamas were there. I had just missed them by couple of days, but it had just opened last year. And it was I had never heard, think about it, I'm 60 years old. Well, at that time, 59. And I had never heard anyone stop me. I used to always say, this country was built on the backs of us, we Black folks. I always say that, we all say that, but most of us as Black folks, we will say, this country was built upon our backs, on our backs. But and then when you go through this Charleston museum, and it lays out all of the slaves that came from Angola, they were specifically chosen to be slaves because of their knowledge of farming rice.
Right.
That gave America there was so much rice being produced in America, they began to outdo China, which explained for all of the wealth that was accumulated in the southern states because of the Angolians and the folks that were Africans that came with their knowledge of how to cultivate the land to produce rice.
Right.
And they still produce this rice in South Carolina.
The yellow rice, yeah.
But in Charleston rice was global. The mansions, when you are in Charleston and you walk down those streets and you see all these amazing mansions and all this, it's just so beautiful. It was Africans.
Yeah, they have there's another museum down there too that's a very good story about Charleston itself as well.
Well, they have the old one that's in town, right in the middle of Charleston, and then they have the new one that was just opened up. That's the one I went to.
I went there as well, but I have to tell you a funny story I have about.
You got it. Go ahead.
So I always listen to like they have the carriage rides where they're telling the Charleston history, and that for years when I went with my husband, I would just walk past it. I'm not getting on that carriage ride, and I would hear them stop in front of these mansions and say, this person had blah blah. The last time I went with some friends, I was determined I was going to ride one of those carriage rides. And so when we got on the carriage ride and they stopped, and the guy said, "Oh, this is so and so's house," and he was in shipping.
Yes.
Most of the carriage drivers are white, right? So I said,
yes.
And I said, "Can you tell them what he was shipping?" I said, "Was he shipping slaves?" So I made him admit that he was shipping slaves.
That's right.
Because we don't ever challenge. We just smiling and grinning on these trips, and we never force these people's hand to say, if you're going to say he made all of this money in shipping, which Charleston had at one point during slavery, they had more millionaires than the rest of the country.
It was the richest state in the Union.
Wow. And it was 70% Black because of enslavement, but they didn't realize that they were outnumbered white people.
Yeah.
But it was the richest state, right? And that all of that money was made off of enslaved people. And you were talking about that it was about our brain and our ability. So you had farmers, you had doctors who were captured, you had people who were architects and builders.
Yes.
Because you built those homes, you built half of the structures in DC were built by enslaved people. So they bought
engineers.
They intentionally got skilled people.
Yep. They did not just look for, when they went to Africa, they were not just looking for, big bodies and strong muscles. They literally were looking for the intellectuals of those tribes, the people that built the structures, that built the agriculture, that built all of that stuff. And they brought it because they said the Europeans did not know how to cultivate the land.
Right.
They didn't know. They had to rely on the indigenous people and the Africans. And then later on, they had to rely on the Chinese to build the railroads.
Yeah. But a part of like what we have to think about as far as Africa is concerned, because you have lots of stories, but we use the Christian Crusades to come through there.
Oh, don't now. See, we're gonna be
we'll
be here for another hour because let me tell you,
we do have to say that, and so that gave them the opportunity, though, Ron, to be able to
Yes.
see the intellect there. When you talk about one of the oldest churches in the world is in Africa.
That's right.
So it gave them the opportunity to see, number one, how good they were at all of those things, at architecture. It wasn't that they didn't have language; they had their language. You just couldn't understand the language that they had. They had a
Well,
language.
hello. Look at what happened with the Moors.
Yeah. So you had
When the Moors were in Europe. Remember, Spain, the lower part of Europe was conquered by the Moors.
By the Moors,
Africans ruled Southern Europe for almost 1,000 years.
Right.
I think it's 978 years, somewhere around there. Almost 1,000 years. Africans gave Europe its architecture. When you're in Spain and you go to all the architectural tours, they will take you to some of the cathedrals that were built first as mosques and then converted to cathedrals. But I can go down a
lot of history, but
there's so much history down. I love it. You know me, I love history. I can talk about history all day long. Lisa, we went overtime. Lisa, we did go overtime. Oh, Chrissy says that's why it's laughable to say supremacy about anything when they didn't know how to do anything but steal. The intellect and know-how came from people of color. Yeah, it is. It's one of those things, man. If you understand the Crusades, woo, those 1,200 years of the Crusade. Because people think it's the Great Crusades happened in 1 year, or the 10 years or 15. It was 100+ years of invading Africa, invading the Middle East. In the name of Jesus, we're going to kill them in the name of Jesus. That's a whole nother story. Ain't going there. But it is people, can I challenge you? Pick up a history book. Pick up the history book. Learn history. Oh, Lisa says, just cut it at an hour for indies and put part 2 on your channels. Well, how about this one could end up being a 2? Well, I'm gonna say, Dr. Tachi, I think we got a 2-hour segment going on here. We got a 2. This is what's going to be called a special. So we gotta make it a special. This is gonna be it'll be an hour and a half special. How about that? It's 1:17. We've been live, so we'll take it to the 30. But yeah, that's my plight in when it comes to our world as Americans, is that Americans we as a people, just as a country, don't invest in knowledge. History.
Yeah.
And the sad thing, and the quote is always, they that don't know their history are doomed to repeat the worst of their history. If you don't know your history, you will fall. This is not the first time fascism has visited America. It visited during the 1920s. It visited during the 1800s. Fascism has been here, has been trying to rear its ugly head every century since the forming of this country. It even in the beginning, as they were forming this country, fascism was trying to that's why George Washington would say, we need to create these laws. And that's why George Washington said, I am not going to be a king. I'm going to remove myself. And there were people that wanted to say, no, you can rule. You conquered this land. You helped conquer this. You were the general. And he says, no, I'm going back to my little house. Right? So this mindset where these Trumpsters, there's always been a part of America that hungers for someone to be in a fascist position or a dictator position or autocratic position. If you check American history, it rears its head almost every 100 years.
Yeah.
As they
So
say,
here's
so tell us oldest time.
so here's my question. Since you mentioned to get like history books and what have you, and we know depending on who writes the story, a certain narrative is told. And then you add in the current mixture of digital and media and how people are putting out these half truths or a different idea of what really happened. What would be the advice for someone to find something that is, I don't want to say the word legit, but legit?
Look for when I'm looking for, I find that a lot of today historians are more universal in their view of the world versus some even though I think of all the history books I read growing up, and yet today I'm still learning stuff that I had never heard of, like it wasn't your bodies but it was your brains. I mean, think about that. We learned about slavery, we all heard of slavery from childhood, but how many of us were I mean, the books say they brought them across the sea to come build the country, blah, 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 blah. And it seems almost like a gloriness to it. And it's like you don't see any harm, no shed, no bloodshed, no killing, no lynching, none of that stuff.
Right.
The history books have none of that. I find that a lot of new historians, usually I find historians of color, and I know that sounds like, oh, Ron, you always bashing white folks. No, I'm not. I really, because I always, when I talk about this subject, I always remember that the abolitionists were white. We got to give them credit. There would be no free slaves if it wasn't for the abolitionists. That there were white people that said, this is wrong. So slavery doesn't end because of slaves. Slavery ends because of white people saying it is wrong. They had to fight among themselves to make it law, to make it right. Blacks, slaves, and people of the what's called the underprivileged of the society can never rise up and take their place. It takes people in the hierarchy of the tiers to say, my brother, we are wrong. We need to change. That's why a lot of folks say racism can only be solved in America by white people.
Yeah.
Black people can't solve racism. It's white people. White people have to say, we were wrong. I am wrong. My grandparents were wrong. My great-great-parents were wrong. We were wrong. And we want something better as a society, and we're going to join forces because all of us are equal. But if it wasn't for the abolitionists that supported Frederick Douglass, or Frederick Douglass going into Abraham Lincoln's cabinet and saying, dude, I'm paraphrasing, you need to change the way you approach. You need to change your approach. And he had to help Abraham Lincoln understand, you can't just do this on, I want to save America. You need more than that to save America.
Yeah, because Lincoln wanted to save it and put you on boats back to Africa.
That's right. Lincoln was like, look, I don't care, free or slave. I don't care. I just want a country.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And I think like when you're looking at the history, it's like going to, I think when you're talking about current historians. So one of the things that they've been doing is making sure they have facts that can't be disputed.
Yes.
Right. So a lot of the people who are out there and they're so passionate, oh my God, this is just right. They can't deny that it happened. They just don't want to tell the story about it happening.
You got to tell the full story.
Because that means I'm racist. No, it doesn't mean it. What it means is that racism exists in this country, and you have to own it, and you have to, the biggest group of people that they want to make sure never rise above a certain standard are American Blacks because we are the symbol of their sin. We are the reminder. So we can talk about atrocities all over the place, but when you start talking about enslavement and have to own it, you have to own the fact, or think about the fact that you don't go to Germany and find statues of Hitler. Those things are outlawed.
That's right.
But in this country, you want to put the flags up, you want statues up, you want all these things for what? And then and understanding that our early history books were actually manipulated by the Daughters of the Confederacy.
Hello. The Daughters of the Confederacy,
they went into those textbook companies and say, these are the kinds of things to put in there so that we don't look
bad.
So that they don't actually have our truth. And some people kept records. They kept records of postcards. There's a whole lynching exhibit that exists, and it has the pictures of the postcards that they were sending around to each other as they took their children to watch lynchings. And so the children, and I tell what I say to people is that some of those children that were there with their families are also some of the ones that don't want the story, older people now who don't want the stories told.
That's right.
Because they were there. They were probably in some of the pictures. Their families were in those pictures. Their families participated in that when they were little. But those are the same ones that said, children can't learn the truth about history. They can't learn. They don't want them to learn their truth.
Well, I tell you, Dr. Tachi, we have come to a consensus in our community that this program is an hour and a half.
Yes.
We're about to get off of this thing. So this did go longer. And we could talk all day about this. We could take this to another half hour. But thank you guys for really joining in the conversation, because Elise, you always bring to the table your knowledge, your wisdom. Gwendolyn as well, with her wisdom and knowledge. And this community is so, I love that we can kind of like get in here and have a conversation and expand our thoughts, and to also expand the conversation. And because sometimes you may just have a piece of the conversation, but when we come on this platform, we really broaden the talk. We share the thoughts. It's a thought machine, and we get to build one another up. So I am so thankful for this community. And if you are here for the first time, or you're on Instagram and you say, "Oh, I never heard this before," come on over. This is what we do all the time. But this is our Thursday. We do Trend Thursdays, Trend Watch. It is also our Thankful Thursday. So we're thankful for everyone that's been here and sharing. And I see Chrissy says, great conversation. Thanks, Ron, Elise, and Gwen. These talks are definitely needed during this election cycle. I see the hearts going up. Yes, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And but again, these conversations are so needed. And again, and we can't be, I always tell folks, and see, I was always fighting this kind of conversation. I used to fight my father because he was such a, he was a Black Panther and all this stuff, and in their whole movement. And I said, why? You're such a racist yourself. I was like, so fight back and forth with them. And I realized as I got older, I was like, well, I now understand what my father was fighting for in the Black Panthers. And all the things that was going on in my childhood that I thought was to our detriment was also really to build us up as a people. And but not just us. When I say the people, yes, as Black people, but I'm always extending it as us, because again, the rich people that are in control and in power, they want white people and Black people fighting. This is about class. They want the poor people and white poor people, Black people, Asian people, all the people down here. They want clashing. So when you're clashing, you're not thinking about what's going on above.
And that's why we have to constantly remember that this is a caste system.
Yes.
And they're at the top of the caste. So everyone else, they have to be on top. They have to stand on everyone else. And we have to constantly remember that. You talk about your father. I was the person in my household with my husband. And, my husband's older than I am, but I was the one always putting these thoughts in front of everyone. And in my house, I was like, oh, you're biased. No, I'm not prejudiced. I am honest about the world we live in. And of course, my husband, once that 2016 happened, everybody in my family was like, man, you were right all the time.
See?
That's because I grew up in a different place. I grew up in Tuskegee, Alabama. We were free to talk about all these things when I was growing up.
I had to say I owe my father an apology because I was
Absolutely.
like thinking he was crazy. I was like, you are just like you are racist so and so.
But I'm gonna say this real quick about Seed. Seed had sickle cell anemia. And you know that the Black Panthers were responsible, those doctors were responsible for a lot of the research that started happening around that disease.
That's right.
So they were fighting for our health and welfare and our rights in this country. And I think that we have to realize that the fight has not ended. The fight doesn't end until the people admit that this is a country that was built on racism, that's still racist, and that they're fight out of their fear trying to make sure everybody fights each other so that they don't get what they want. And anyone that's thinking about not voting or voting for a third party, forget about it. You have two choices. You need to vote. You have two choices. And I'm going to put it in a way that hopefully people can understand. You can either live in a democracy and be free, or you can vote for the other side and try to figure out where they're building a concentration camp that you might be in.
And concentration camps are real. And if you haven't read Project 2025, you better get into it, because if you want to know what the world's going to look like if Trump wins, you better look at Project 2025. And I'm glad that some of the media is picking it up.
Right. And if you're in the Latin community, if you're in the Latinx community and you are thinking that maybe it won't impact you, what do you think the 11 million people that he's promising to deport? Who do you think those people are? They're not
right. They ain't the Black folks. Black folks ain't got nowhere to go. This is all we know.
Yes. This is like I said, I'm indigenous.
Yes.
There's no exporting me anyplace.
Well, I'm not. I'm just an African planted in America 500 years ago.
So let me tell you why I say I'm indigenous.
Because you were born and raised here.
It wasn't just that I was born and raised here. I was created here. I'm a conglomerate of everything that the enslaver and the enslaved. I exist. My composite of who I am, as far as my bloodline, exists because of that industry. So I was a product. My ancestors were a product. I'm the descendant of ancestors I'm the product of enslavement.
Wow, you said it. Thank you, my dearest.
That's why I say that. I started because I want people to understand you can't send me any place that I don't want to go.
That's interesting.
I like the way you formulate that.
Yeah. I like that part. I mean, it's if I can add on to that, I know my mother back in 93 traced her mother's lineage all the way back to the slave owners. And even to this day, like, they have a website of all of the people where this name Cloud came from. And there is that little portion. I shouldn't say little because it's gotten bigger, but there is the portion that talks about like our ancestors as slaves and then the kids they had and where that has come from. And we have been invited to share our portion of that Cloud story on the website so that we are not, I guess you would say, forgotten, but that we're included, that yes, there are some Black folks who are part of this family, although they were enslaved.
And they're the product of that.
Yeah. I had never considered that.
When you look
at
I know Ron said that we're going to go to 130.
Well, now we're over 130.
And I'm going to do it. And I'm sorry, we're going to have to cut it.
So now we're going to do 2 o'clock.
But when Ms. Louise talked about the lynchings at these Sunday picnics.
Yes, baby. Yes.
You and I were talking, Ron, about how, like, I don't watch the videos of these body cams because it feels as if it's a public day lynching to let, Black people know that if you decide to still get out of line, we would just take you out.
Yeah.
Right. And I was speaking to the young airman that was recently murdered in Florida.
Yes.
Right. Like, continuing to watch those kinds of videos, in my opinion, it's just traumatizing. I mean, we saw Rodney King, and I know as a teenager, it literally jacked me up. literally. And we've seen time and time again the public brutality of Black bodies that just lets us know, because there is this hopeful idea of they'll go to jail, we'll get justice, and then justice is just not served.
They are not going to jail. They are not going to serve time unless they come across a prosecutor like Marilyn Mosby.
Yeah.
But then if she wins, they're going to go after her or him. Yeah. Whoever goes after them.
And you have to think about, they had pictorial, they had pictures of lynchings that are part of history. And now we have videos of what's happening, and you still don't see people being brought to justice.
That's right. We thought it was going to change with the cams.
Yeah. There's everyone thought it was going to change with body cams, and it really hasn't. You see them blatantly kill people. The only thing that helped in George Floyd's case wasn't a body cam. It was the young woman who videotaped it.
That's right.
Yeah.
It wasn't a police officer's body cam.
Yeah.
Abharo says everyone should see the Equal Justice Initiative Museum in Alabama.
Okay.
It's so shattering, stunning, but a necessary education.
Take your tissue. I'm going to tell you now, when you go down to Montgomery to see it, take your tissue.
I've never been to Alabama.
So you go to Montgomery, you see that the Equal Justice Museum, but then after that you go over to where they have the pylons that they've created with lynchings in each state. And if you find and places in different parts of the state, and once you find it, you can actually, and they have the ones that are hanging, and they have the ones that are laying flat, and the ones, once you find it, you can actually take the one. You can actually get together and get the one and bring it back to the place. So they have the ones that hang, and they have the ones that are on the ground, and it has the names that they know of all the lynching people.
Speaking of the lynching, and at the African American Heritage Museum in Washington, D.C., when I went through that section, I can't tell you how disoriented I was by the imagery of the realness of it. And, we see, in footage, we see some things of lynching. We see one or two pictures. That display takes you in such depth that literally has a warning before you go into that section. It really, that's why when people tell you, oh, you can just get over it.
Yeah.
just can't you Black people just get over it?
Yeah.
I mean, when you think that on the churches, on the lawns of churches across the South and some northern places, that Sunday they would get out of church after worshiping God. They would go out to the lawn for the picnic, which some Black people don't even use the word picnic,
right?
Because it meant pick a nigga. That's where picnic comes from in the 1800s here in America. But I mean, it was used before that term. But it became the relationship, pick a nigga. So that's what picnic meant. So, and they would have sandwiches, barbecues, but all while a Black man or woman or child was hanging from a tree.
Yeah. And
you sit there and say, how, when you look at the evil, that, I mean, to me as a human being, it blows still my mind. It takes some kind of evil to see a human being and fry them. Not only lynch them, pour oil and fry them, or cut off their parts. And the children are watching. The white kids are watching. This is how they indoctrinated them.
Right. And Miss B spoke said it earlier, and pass out the pieces.
Pass out the
People
pieces.
have
her comment on
As
that.
souvenirs.
and there may be people who are out there now whose families still have those souvenirs.
Yes, an
I would
ear,
not doubt
a
it.
nose, you know,
A
it
finger.
is. But yet there are people in this country will say, "Get over it." Just why can't y'all just get over it?
But you know, why is it that as you think about atrocities in the world, why are we the ones that are always told to get over that?
Right.
Because no one's
No
telling,
one
and
else
this
is
is
told to
nothing.
get
This is
over.
nothing against. There's nothing against my Jewish brothers and
I know
sisters.
you're going there.
Because no one's getting over what the Holocaust. No one. I mean, and the Holocaust was an evil too.
Absolutely.
But when you think about you talk about millions of people that died in the transatlantic slave trade, and we are not even taught. When I was in South Africa, when I lived in South Africa, I was exposed to a whole nother side of slavery that I did not know of. The Eastern slave trade. And most Americans don't even know about that. So you think about not only, I mean, we Westerners, we think about the Western slave trade.
Right. Because
there's a whole nother slave trade on the east side of Africa going on that America is not even in the American history books. And that was up. So we got time to go. We're gonna push it to 2 o'clock. You know, to 2 o'clock. What time is it? We're pushing it to 1:15. There we go. 1:15. So I'm in South Africa, and I noticed something when I first get there, that there are people with last names that are the days of the week. There was Keith Friday. There's Susie Monday. There's Brenda Thursday. There's Sally. Everyone had these last names that were the days of the weeks. So people in South Africa said, "Oh, I can't marry Susan Monday because she may be a relative to me."
Wow.
Or the slave girl that was a descendant of a slave in South Africa would say, "I can't marry Keith Friday, because I'm a Friday. My family is Friday."
Wow.
And Chris says I'm cutting into her meditation time.
That's interesting.
Sorry, Trish. But I go to the museum, to this, the South African Museum in Cape Town, and I find out about the East slavery trade. And it shows all the boats and all the people and all the history of it. It is well laid out. But there's a hall where all of the people with their last names, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and Fridays, and Saturdays, and Sundays. And people were saying, "I'm not going to marry that person with the same last name, so I wouldn't bring harm to the offspring." Turned out that they were having offspring problems because they were marrying sisters and brothers and stuff, because the slave trade of the East slave trade, like an American slave trade, or the Western slave trade, Africans were named after their slave owners' last names. They took on the last names of their slave owners. In the Eastern slave trade, they took on the day that they were sold. So if you were sold on a Monday to your plantation owner, your last name was Monday. If you were sold on a Tuesday, your last name was Tuesday. And so when I was in South Africa, I'm telling you, my mind, I would go to the museums and all these because I'm curious like that. I was blown. My mind. You talk about having a. Can I say brain orgasm? Can I say brain orgasm? My brain was like, holy moly. I was in like brain ecstasy. Like, I never knew that this Who even? And then it talks about the east coast of slavery, and then how the India was also brought into that slave trade, and so that's why you have black people, in customs in India, and all the trading that went on between on the Pacific and Australia and all these places. It blew my mind, and because all I knew was the Western slave trade. I didn't even know anything about the Eastern slave trade. This is why world travel is so important.
Yes.
Because you discover things you will never learn in your country. Forget the country. I've been to Europe. I've been to London. I've been to museums in London. I've been to museums in Paris. I've been to museums. And I had never, ever in any of the European museums heard of the Eastern slave trade. Look it up. Go on your Google machine and look up Eastern slave trade. You will be blown away. I mean, when you talk about a taking of a people, think about
a whole continent of people.
A whole continent of people were taken out. I mean, when you think about Brazil has more Africans than any place on earth outside of Africa, and that the numbers are almost equivalent because so many black people were under the Portuguese transported across the ocean, across the ocean from between South Africa and Africa and South America. And you see so many black traditions and cultures in Brazil. Man, and when someone tells me to just get over it, y'all just need to just get over it. I'm like, y'all not getting over what's going on with my Jewish brothers and sisters. No. And as far as I know, our situation is far worse. Not to be mean, obviously the Israelites had their things going through thousands of years in the Bible and in and out and all that other stuff. But the atrocities,
right?
You think about what happened between 1460, was it 1460 or 1450 to the 1800s? You talk 400 years. 400 years. You cleaned out a continent.
Right.
Man, holy moly.
It's so easy for people to say, get over things. And that's like, so if you don't want to talk about racism, whether it exists and all that kind of stuff, we can still talk about the 60s. We can still talk about the 70s. We can talk about all the atrocities that happened after all of those things. So I think they have to be constantly reminded, Emmett Till didn't get killed in the 1800s.
The largest population of lynchings took place in the 20th century.
Yeah. Right.
The largest population of lynchings took place during the 1900s.
Right. And
not the 1800s.
Right. Absolutely. And so when you think about, even when they built those Confederate statues, a lot of it came around every time there was progress made, they throw up a statue. They weren't built way back when. They were built in modern times. And a lot of it was about putting them in communities and trying to remind them. And, you constantly want to remind us, because if you didn't want to have the memories there, you stop erecting things to these Confederate soldiers, these Confederate generals, and people who wanted to keep us enslaved. So you want the part of the history you want. You don't want the part of the history that shows you actually what happened in this country, the atrocities. When you talk about places like South Africa, there are things like, I look at people like, oh, I love a Tesla, but we're talking about apartheid.
Yes.
Right. About people who benefited from that.
Yeah. And apartheid was just 40 years ago.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago. So if we're talking about the history of things that happening, atrocities and racism in America, that's not, it's still happening. It didn't stop.
Right.
It has not stopped.
Okay, guys, it's we're into an hour and 49 minutes. Yeah. Anthony says things to do: read about the Eastern slave trade. That's homework,
Absolutely.
guys.
That's
Check
homework.
it out.
Yes, I definitely will
Kim
read that.
says, this is a history lesson for everyone. This has to be a special for Indie Soup Media and your platforms, Ron. This is a 2-hour special. It's like 60 minutes. This is like 120. Oh my gosh. We went in today. But you know what? It's okay. Just so y'all know, today's the last day of this season.
Right.
And so we'll be back on June 4th with new programming, new guests, and all that other stuff. I'm taking a 2-week vacation, much needed, much deserved. I'll be on Cyber. I'll be sharing some of the places I'm going to and some of the museums and galleries I'll be popping into in North Carolina, South Carolina, maybe who knows where I'll end up when I get down there. But I'll be sharing along the way. But this is it's kind of like, it's almost apropos that this last show of the season would be the 2-hour show.
Right. You know, you go back to Charleston, make sure you find that. I can't remember the name of the other museum that's there, but there's another history museum there that talks about gives you a lot of history about Charleston specifically. There's one about Charleston specifically. And if you've never been to Charleston, it has the history on signs down there. The one
everywhere
about the enslaved man that stole the ship, and freed slaves. They actually have signs honoring that history. So there's a lot of history that they do honor around Black people, enslaved people, and free Black people. So it's a lot of history in Charleston.
Well, and let me give you a couple of hold on a second right there. Just so those know, I do teach photography. So if you're interested in learning photography, make sure you pop in. You can just reach out to me and we can set up in class. I'm loving teaching my students this. We had one of my students, she's moving up she's going into composition, started this week, and we just started rule of thirds with her. And so I'm so excited. But if you are interested in learning lessons, reach out to me and I'll let you know how we can do that. Also, thank you for the Patreon community for supporting, and Etrimus, who's been supporting what I do here, and Patreon. There's people in the Patreon community that send me $100 a month that help support this and be able to create what I do for you guys. So thank you to all the Patreon members that are supporting either small dollar amounts and the big dollar amounts. Everyone is supporting, and I am so thankful. If you want to become a Patreon member, make sure you just go to patreon.com and click on that and support that way. And I think we got them all. I think we got all the announcements. And again, Photography Community Channel, thank you for that. You're invited to join us and subscribe on this channel to get to know knowledge about photography and all other kind of stuff. But please like and subscribe. Make sure you do that. Make sure you like and subscribe. And guys, this was
enjoy your
so
vacation,
good.
Ron.
Look, vacation. Woo! Vacation
Yeah.
begins as soon as I get off this thing today.
And as you go on vacation, I think my artist live interviews are increasing. So
well, that's
not intentionally, but yes.
You are definitely going to be. And then also in the new season, I want to have you on more, Elise. I think you bring so much to the community. You bring so much to people, and people we all can just sit at your feet and just listen all day. So you are just an amazing blessing. And so thank you for you being who you are. Gwendolyn, thank you for being my work wife.
I try.
I acknowledge my love for you. You are just amazing. You keep me on track sometimes when I don't want to. She has to take out the stick and say, Ron, you got to get it together.
Wifey duties.
So thank you so much. And again, I see Arlesia says, May says, love this segment. 1207, Anthony Rowland. Miss Dito says, North Carolina, love it. If any of you are in North Carolina, reach out to me. Maybe I can hang out. I'm going to be hanging out with Fifi, and when I get there, so we're going to spend some time together. I'll be there for 10 days, and I'm going to just enjoy my time in the South. No police sirens, no cars honking. I am looking forward to getting out of the city for just a little bit of time. Okay.
Good
We
for
did
you.
good, guys. We did good. Thank you so much for joining us on Touch Base Daily. And I am going to see you guys in June 4th. Like I said, I'll see you before then, but as officially, Touch Base Daily Community will be June 4th.